Carbon monoxide awareness training for workers. Introduction. Carbon monoxide, CO, is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas that can be extremely dangerous when inhaled. It is produced by the incomplete combustion of fuel such as gas, oil, wood, or coal. Due to its harmful effects, it is crucial for workers in certain industries to be aware of the risks associated with CO exposure and take preventive measures to stay safe. This training provides essential information for workers exposed to carbon monoxide in the workplace. 1. What is carbon monoxide, CO? Carbon monoxide, CO, is a toxic gas that is produced by the burning of carbon-containing fuel such as gasoline, diesel, natural gas, wood, or coal. Common sources of CO here at Alloy include internal combustion engines, e.g., forklifts, skid steers, excavators, generators. Heating systems. Push-behind saws, diesel or natural gas. Gas-powered tools. Vehicles operating in enclosed or poorly ventilated areas. 2. Health risks of carbon monoxide exposure. Inhalation of carbon monoxide can lead to serious health issues. CO binds to hemoglobin in the blood, reducing its ability to carry oxygen to vital organs. This can lead to the following health effects. Mild exposure, headache, dizziness, fatigue, shortness of breath, nausea, and confusion. Moderate exposure, severe headache, chest pain, impaired judgment, memory loss, and loss of coordination. Severe exposure, loss of consciousness, coma, permanent brain damage, or death. Pregnant workers. Exposure to CO can be particularly harmful to pregnant workers and their unborn child, causing developmental issues or complications during pregnancy. 3. Routes of exposure. The primary route of carbon monoxide exposure is inhalation. CO can accumulate in poorly ventilated areas, creating dangerous concentrations. It is especially hazardous in confined spaces such as tanks and vaults, underground or confined workspaces, enclosed areas with equipment running. 4. Recognizing the symptoms of CO poisoning. Workers should be aware of the symptoms of carbon monoxide exposure. Symptoms may include headaches, dizziness or lightheadedness, nausea and vomiting, fatigue or weakness, shortness of breath, confusion or difficulty thinking clearly, loss of consciousness in severe cases. If these symptoms are noticed, immediately leave the area and seek fresh air. 5. Preventive measures. To minimize the risk of CO exposure, workers should follow these preventive measures. Ensure proper ventilation. Always ensure that workspaces where combustion equipment is used are well ventilated. This includes areas with gas-powered tools, engines, or heating systems. Monitor CO levels. Use carbon monoxide detectors in areas with potential exposure to monitor CO levels. These devices should be calibrated yearly and maintained to ensure they are working properly. Avoid work in confined spaces. Avoid operating gas-powered equipment in confined spaces. If you must work in such areas, ensure proper ventilation or use mechanical ventilation systems to prevent CO buildup. Maintain equipment. Ensure all combustion engines, heating systems, and gas-powered tools are properly maintained and functioning to prevent CO leaks. Use protective equipment. In situations with higher CO exposure that cannot be purged ahead of time, use personal protective equipment such as air-supplied respirators. 6. Emergency procedures. In the event of suspected carbon monoxide exposure, follow these emergency procedures. Leave the area immediately. If you experience symptoms or suspect CO exposure, exit the area immediately and move to fresh air. Alert others. Inform nearby workers and supervisors of the potential CO hazard. Call for help. Contact emergency services if you suspect high CO levels or if any worker loses consciousness. Seek medical attention. Workers showing symptoms of CO poisoning should seek medical attention as soon as possible. Treatment may include administering oxygen or hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Evacuate the area. In case of a CO leak, evacuate the area and follow site-specific emergency protocols. 7. Personal protective equipment, PPE. When working in areas where CO exposure is possible, appropriate personal protective equipment should be used. The following PPE is recommended. Carbon monoxide monitors. Use personal CO monitors to alert workers of dangerous CO concentrations. Respirators. When ventilation is inadequate, wear respirators with appropriate CO filters. Ventilation. If working in confined spaces, mechanical or forced air ventilation should be used to remove CO from the environment. 8. Safe work practices. To further reduce the risk of exposure, workers should follow these safety practices. Regular breaks. In areas where CO exposure is likely, take regular breaks in well-ventilated areas to reduce cumulative exposure. Do not use gas-powered equipment indoors. Avoid operating gas-powered engines, equipment, or vehicles indoors unless adequate ventilation systems are in place. Ensure safe entry into confined spaces. Before entering any confined space where CO may be present, ensure it has been properly ventilated or monitored for CO levels. 9. Monitoring and reporting. Routine monitoring. Employers should regularly monitor CO levels in the workplace, especially in areas with combustion engines or gas-powered equipment. Health surveillance. Workers who are exposed to CO regularly should undergo health monitoring, including lung function tests and assessments for neurological effects. Reporting hazards. Workers should immediately report any signs of CO leaks or malfunctioning equipment to supervisors or safety officers. 10. Regulatory compliance. Employers and employees must comply with relevant regulations concerning carbon monoxide exposure, including OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, standards for air quality and hazardous gases. OSHA's carbon monoxide regulation requirements for construction is permissible exposure limit, PL 8 hour. Time weighted average, TWA 50 ppm. Ceiling limit, 200 ppm. The OSHA ceiling limit is 200 ppm, meaning that exposure should never exceed this level for a 15-minute period. Monitoring and testing. Employers must monitor environmental exposure to CO whenever internal combustion engines discharge engine exhaust gases indoors or unvented space heaters are operated indoors. Air monitoring should be done during initial operation and at least quarterly thereafter, and during periods of highest usage in areas where CO exposure is most likely. Carbon monoxide concentration tests should be performed when necessary to ensure that employee exposure does not exceed the limits. Tests should be performed by designated persons using appropriate methods. NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, recommended exposure limits, RELs, for CO. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, guidelines for CO emissions and air quality standards. Compliance with these regulations helps ensure a safe working environment and limits the risks of CO exposure. 11. Conclusion. Carbon monoxide is a dangerous gas that poses significant health risks. It is essential for workers to understand the hazards of CO exposure, recognize symptoms of poisoning, and follow proper safety protocols. By using preventive measures, wearing appropriate protective equipment, and monitoring CO levels, workers can greatly reduce the risk of exposure and stay safe on the job.